Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep into Sadhguru's inner engineering.
I'm excited for this one.
It's a fascinating book, really. It's got like personal anecdotes, yogic philosophy, some pretty unconventional ideas about things,
Yeah,
like food and relationships, and even like how we think.
definitely.
So are you ready to kind of see what we can uncover?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Sadhguru, he doesn't hold back,
No, he doesn't.
which I appreciate. And what I find really compelling is how he, brings in his own experiences into these, profound teachings about, the nature of well-being and how we can access it.
Yeah, it's not your like typical self-help book.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He describes himself as a skeptic, especially when it came to like traditional education and organized religion.
It's interesting that skepticism actually aligns perfectly with his core message, which is seeking truth through your own experience,
Right.
not blind faith. So
Yeah.
even his early resistance to those traditional paths reflects that idea of questioning everything and finding your own answers.
Exactly. And that's where the story about how he got into yoga comes in.
Right.
It all started with a well jumping competition.
It's wild.
Can you believe that?
It's it's almost too perfect, right?
Yeah.
You have Sadhguru,
Yeah.
this athletic, adventurous young man. He challenges this older man to this physical feat.
Yeah.
Fully expects to win, and not only does the older man beat him, but he seems completely unfazed.
Right.
And Sadhguru, humbled, asks him how, and the man simply says, "Come learn yoga."
Like it makes you wonder if that moment like planted a seed.
Mhm.
You know, like,
Yeah.
did it challenge Sadhguru's assumptions about like strength and well-being, what those
Yeah.
things actually mean? Because it seems like that encounter was the beginning of a pretty like massive shift for him.
Absolutely. And it also speaks to the idea that sometimes the most profound transformations, they come from the most unexpected sources.
Yeah.
And I think, for those of you listening, maybe this makes you think of those moments in your own life where something really challenged your worldview
Right.
and opened you up to a new way of seeing things.
It's like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And for Sadhguru, maybe that well-jumping competition was the moment he became ready.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought it was really striking how he describes his state before yoga.
Hmm.
He said that like waking up was a whole family affair,
Oh, yeah.
toothbrush in hand,
Yeah.
still half asleep. I
Yeah.
mean, like, who hasn't been there, right?
Totally.
And then after just 3 months of practice, he starts waking up naturally at 3:40 a.m.,
Wow.
full of energy and alertness.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
And it's really important here. It's not just the physical change,
Right.
but the shift from that state of inertia
Yeah.
to a state of heightened awareness.
Yeah.
And this is something that Sadhguru comes back to again and again in the book, this idea that through yogic practices, we can tap into a deeper dimension of experience, one that's already within us.
Yeah, it's not just about the postures and the breathing exercise, right?
No.
It's about transforming the way that we experience life itself.
Exactly.
And speaking of transformations, there's that story about Sadhguru having this almost psychedelic experience
Well,
while
yeah.
eating a meal.
Yes, he describes it as this sudden realization, a visceral realization that the food he was consuming, this piece of the planet, was literally becoming a part of him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it totally shifted his perspective on his connection to the world around him.
I wonder how many of us eat without truly considering where our food comes from,
Right.
and what it takes to nourish us.
Yeah.
His experience seems to point to a deeper level of awareness, sense of gratitude and reverence for the interconnectedness of all things.
It's a really powerful reminder that even something as simple as eating
Yeah.
can be an opportunity to connect with something larger than ourselves.
I love that.
And that brings us to another key concept from the book, this idea that all human experience
Okay.
at its core is a pursuit of pleasantness.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Is it?
Isn't striving for positive experiences just a natural human drive?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's not about denying our desire for pleasantness,
Okay.
but understanding its role in our lives.
Yeah.
He's saying that whether it's worldly success or spiritual pursuits or even indulging in unhealthy habits,
Right.
we're all essentially chasing this feeling of pleasantness.
Okay.
And the problem is that chase can often lead us further away from true well-being
So we're looking for it in the wrong places.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we think it's outside of ourselves.
Yeah, he uses this analogy of a bull and a pheasant to illustrate this point, which I thought was kind of funny.
Okay, tell me about it.
So the pheasant is complaining about its inability to fly, right?
Uh-huh.
And the bull tells him, well, eat my dung for 2 weeks and you'll be able to fly again.
Ooh.
The pheasant's, like, disgusted naturally, right?
I would be too.
And the bull says, try it and see. The whole of humanity's onto it.
Okay, I see where he's going with this.
Yeah, so it's like we're grabbing onto external solutions.
Yeah.
Without addressing the root of the problem.
Yeah, like we're chasing like the external fixes,
Yeah.
the quick hit, like dopamine rush.
Exactly.
Instead of like looking inward to cultivate a more kind of sustainable sense of well-being.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a radical shift in perspective.
It is.
Makes me wonder if technology and material comforts don't automatically lead to like greater well-being. What does? Like, what's the alternative?
Well, that's where I think Sadhguru's teachings on inner engineering come in.
Okay.
He's saying that, like, true well-being requires an inner transformation. And that transformation starts with understanding, you know, ourselves, our minds,
right,
and the powerful machine that is the human body.
I'm very intrigued to explore that further.
Me too.
So let's dive into those mechanics and see what Sadhguru has to say about how we can optimize this like incredible machine for a more fulfilling experience of life.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're ready to explore this human machine thing a little deeper.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So Sadhguru breaks it down into 5 sheaths.
Oh, wait.
Or koshas.
Okay.
And they represent different layers of our being.
Right.
Starting with the physical body.
Okay.
Which she calls the Annamaya kosha.
Annamaya kosha.
Which literally means food body.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Considering this is made up of, you know, what we eat.
That's very true.
Food body.
Food body, got it.
Yeah.
What about the other layers, though?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
So the next one is the Manomaya kosha.
Okay.
The mental body.
All right.
And this is where, like, our thoughts and emotions hang out.
Okay.
And then there's the Pranamaya kosha.
The pranamaya kosha.
The energy body.
Okay.
You know, the, like, life force that flows through us.
Yeah.
And Sadhguru really emphasizes that, like, working with these 3, the physical, the mental, and the energy, is key to accessing the Anandamaya kosha.
Anandamaya kosha. Wait, that's the bliss body, right?
That's right.
But you said accessing it, not creating it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like it's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like waiting.
It's not like this separate entity.
Okay.
It's more of like a state of being that arises
I see.
when those other layers are in alignment.
Okay.
Yeah, and this brings us to this really crucial concept.
Okay.
Conscious response.
Conscious response.
Yeah. Sadhguru talks about how we can experience a sense of freedom and well-being regardless of our external circumstances. If we can learn to, like, respond consciously instead of reacting compulsively.
So it's about choosing our response rather than like being ruled by like our emotions or habitual patterns.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds, I guess, a little bit like that old saying, don't react, respond.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But how do we actually cultivate that ability?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, he tells a story about these 4 thieves who get caught in a rainstorm.
Okay.
And they seek shelter in, like, dilapidated temple.
Okay.
And with nowhere else to go, they end up, like, hugging the idol in the center.
Okay.
Seeking protection from the elements, right?
Okay, I'm following.
And in that moment of surrender, God appears.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're, like, astonished, right? They're wondering, why are we only experiencing this now?
Right.
Like, when we let go of our usual scheming.
So these thieves in their, like, desperate stumble upon, like spiritual experience.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of amazing.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how sometimes the, like, most profound experiences come when we, like, stop trying to control everything.
I think that's right.
Like, surrender to what is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it opens us up to, like, a whole new level of possibility.
Totally. And it also highlights, you know, like, how our intentions and our inner state really shape our perception of reality.
Right.
Like, if we approach life with, like, resistance and fear, that's what we're going to experience.
Right.
But if we're open to something greater, we might be surprised by what we find.
I love that.
Yeah. So, speaking of opening ourselves up to new possibilities,
okay,
let's talk about Sadhguru's views on food.
All right, bring on the food talk.
Yeah, this is, I think, a really interesting one.
Yeah, his approach is, like, from what I've read, pretty far cry from, like, the usual diet fads and calorie counting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Like, the yogic perspective is about seeing food as fuel.
Okay.
It's about understanding how what we eat impacts the quality and function of our, like, physical and mental being.
That makes sense.
And Sadhguru even suggests this, like, interesting experiment.
Yes.
Eat your favorite meal while you're in a state of anger,
Mm-hmm.
then have the same meal again, but this time approach it with reverence
Okay.
and see how the experience differs.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I could already imagine, like, how different those two experiences would feel.
totally. Yeah.
It's like, it's not just about the food itself,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like the energy that we bring to the table.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
He also delves into the science of digestion,
Okay.
like comparing the lengths of the alimentary canals in herbivores and carnivores.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard him talk about this before.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. So herbivores, with their longer canals, they can extract more nutrients from like plant-based foods.
Mm-hmm.
But carnivores, they have shorter canals
Mm-hmm.
that are like designed for quicker digestion of meat.
Okay.
So
I've never thought about it like that, but it makes sense. So
Yeah.
where do we, like, fall on that spectrum?
yeah, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Our digestive systems are they're more similar to herbivores,
Okay.
but he goes even deeper,
Oh.
like talking about how the body rewrites the evolutionary code of the food we eat.
Rewrites? What does that even mean?
Okay, so when we consume plants,
Mm-hmm.
our body breaks them down
Mm-hmm.
and then reconstructs them according to our human code.
Okay.
But when we consume animals,
Right.
especially those like closer to us on the evolutionary scale,
Yeah.
this rewriting becomes more complex.
So the closer a creature is to us on, like, the evolutionary ladder, the harder it is for our body to, like, fully integrate it.
It seems that way, yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
And that brings us to fasting,
Fasting. Okay.
a practice that's often associated with spirituality. Right. But Sadhguru's perspective is really rooted in the natural cycles of the body.
Okay.
He talks about the mandala,
Okay.
this 40 to 48 day cycle
Okay.
where the body naturally goes through like 3 cleanup days.
Hold on. Cleanup days. Like, our bodies are naturally designed for, like, periods of fasting.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's really interesting.
It's like built-in detox days
Yeah.
where the body can, focus on rejuvenation.
That's amazing.
And he encourages us to pay attention to those internal signals,
Okay.
recognizing when we're truly hungry
Right.
and when we might be eating out of habit
Right.
or, emotional triggers.
That's such a different approach than, like, the typical, like, restrictive diet mentality.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's about like tuning into our bodies,
Yeah.
honoring those natural rhythms.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Talk about the intellect.
Okay, intellect.
I have a feeling this is where things might get a little challenging.
Yeah, isn't the intellect often, like, overemphasized in our society?
That's exactly Sadhguru's point.
Okay.
So he delves into this like yogic view of the mind's 16 dimensions,
Okay.
but focuses on 4:
Mhm.
buddhi, which is intellect,
Okay.
manas, which is memory,
Got it.
chitta, which is awareness,
Uh-huh.
and ahankara, which is identity.
Okay.
Yeah. And he acknowledges the intellect's crucial role in like survival,
Right.
but he points out how it can become a barrier
Okay.
when overemphasized,
Yeah.
like trapping us in endless analysis
Right.
and preventing us from actually like experiencing the present moment.
So it's like the very tool that helps us navigate the world
Yeah,
can also become like a prison.
almost. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a paradox.
Yeah, he paints this like vivid picture of the intellect constantly being like dipped in memory,
Okay.
limiting its ability to see what's actually happening right now.
So how do we, like, clean that lens?
Yeah, great question.
Like, how do we break free from that, tyranny of the overactive mind?
Well, his solution is to like soak the intellect in awareness.
Okay.
He uses this analogy of a swordsman cutting a tree.
Okay.
A skilled swordsman can cut through the tree without the tree even knowing it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful image.
And similarly, like a finely honed intellect
Mm.
infused with awareness can like discern without analyze without fragmenting.
I see. It's like it can do its job.
Yeah.
But it's not like getting in its own way.
Right.
Right.
That's really interesting.
It's about moving from like a state of duality where
Right.
we see everything in terms of opposites
Yeah.
to a state of unity where we recognize like the interconnectedness of all things.
That sounds profoundly
It
liberating.
really is.
But what about devotion?
Devotion. Okay.
Where does that fit into, like, all of this? Isn't it, like, often seen as kind of like an emotional path?
As opposed to like the intellectual path of knowing.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sadhguru acknowledges, like, the potential pitfalls of devotion,
Okay.
how it can, like, lead to blind faith
Right.
or even fanaticism.
Right.
He tells this amusing story
Okay.
about this man who's, like, seeking supernatural powers.
Okay.
And he's given this, like, simple mantra to repeat,
Okay.
but told, like, not to think of monkeys while doing so.
Oh. Yeah.
Of course, what happens?
He thinks of monkeys.
His mind becomes fixated on monkeys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, don't think of a pink elephant.
Exactly.
It's like the moment you tell yourself not to, it's all you can think about.
Exactly. The point is,
Huh.
like, devotion, when guided by awareness,
Okay.
can be a powerful force for transformation.
Right.
But without the clarity of knowing,
Right.
it can easily become a trap.
So it's not about choosing one path over the other. It's
Yeah.
about like finding that balance between
Generally
like
so.
the heart and the mind. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It's about, like, integrating our understanding into our actions, you know,
Oh, right.
living in alignment with the truth we claim to know.
Yeah, I love that.
And speaking of aligning our inner and outer worlds,
Okay.
our guru has some interesting perspectives on love and self-esteem.
Okay, love and self-esteem, those are like topics that come up a lot
Yeah,
in like the self-help world.
for sure.
What's Sadhguru's take on those?
He kind of flips the script on conventional wisdom a bit,
Okay.
suggesting that love isn't something we get from someone else,
Okay.
but a quality that we cultivate within ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah. He also challenges the idea that, like, self-esteem is a prerequisite for happiness,
Okay.
suggesting that, like, letting go of the self altogether
Wow.
might be a more liberating path.
That's a radical perspective.
It's
It kind of like goes against everything we're usually told
Yeah.
about the importance of like finding love and like building a strong sense of self.
Yep.
But so I mean he shares this hilarious story about Shankar and Pillai
Oh, yeah.
to illustrate this. Do you remember that one?
I do.
So after immersing himself in this philosophy of Vedanta,
Yeah.
which teaches the oneness of all things, he
Right.
goes to a restaurant and like believing everything is his,
Yeah.
he walks out without paying.
That's right.
Like, is this guy serious?
Well, he even pockets some cash from the till,
Fuck.
reasoning
Yeah.
that, like, there's no separation between him and the money.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so of course, this lands him in court,
Right.
where the judge, also trying to, like, reason with him, sentences him to 10 lashes.
Oh, okay.
And with each lash,
Mm-hmm.
as Shankar Pillai is, like, crying out in pain,
Yeah.
the judge keeps reminding him that, like, it's all Maya.
Right.
There's no such thing as pain and pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, eventually the Vedanta is beaten out of him.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it is funny.
But also kind of painful.
Yeah.
Like-
But it really illustrates how an intellectual understanding
Yeah.
of a concept
Yeah.
without experiential grounding can lead to all sorts of trouble.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's not enough to just like think our way to enlightenment, right? We
Yeah.
have to like put these concepts into practice
Exactly.
in our everyday lives.
And that brings us to
Okay.
some of the more, like, practical aspects
Okay.
of Sadhguru's teaching.
Okay. All
Are
right.
you ready to delve into the world of Kriya Yoga,
Yes.
consecrated spaces,
Yes.
and even Sadhguru's fascination with mountains?
Absolutely. I'm eager to explore all that.
All right, let's keep diving deeper.
So we've talked about this human machine idea.
Right.
Food is fuel.
Mm-hmm.
The power of conscious response.
Yeah.
Where does Kriya Yoga fit into all of this?
Well, it's like, it's a core part of Sadhguru's teachings, you know.
Okay.
He describes it as, like, a powerful spiritual path
Okay.
that works on aligning those three key elements we talked about: the physical,
Yeah.
the mental, and the energy bodies.
So it's not just about the physical postures then.
No, not at all.
Like there's a deeper, more internal element to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Sadhguru talks about how practicing Kriya can enhance creativity
Mm.
and loosen what he calls karmic limitations.
Okay, karmic limitation. So this gets into like the yogic understanding of karma, right?
Right.
Like the accumulation of our past actions, and they like create these patterns and tendencies that
Yeah.
kind of limit our potential.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're carrying around this like baggage from our past
Yeah.
that like weighs us down.
Hmm.
And Kriya Yoga is a way to kind of like lighten that load.
You could think of it that way, yeah.
Yep.
Through like its transformative practices, Kriya Yoga can help us, break free from those limiting patterns
Right.
and create like a more expansive experience of life.
I'm starting to see how like all these pieces fit together,
Yeah.
from like understanding the human machine to
Mhm.
working with our energy
Yeah.
and responding consciously to life. It's like it's all interconnected.
It is. It's a holistic system,
Yeah.
And Sadhguru, he even tells this story about this yogi named Sadashiva Brahmendra,
Okay.
who was so like absorbed in his inner experience that he would walk around naked, seemingly oblivious to the world.
Oh.
And one day, a soldier,
Okay.
angered by his like lack of response to an order, he
Right.
strikes him with a sword, severing his arm.
Oh my goodness.
But incredibly, Sadashiva Brahmendra just keeps walking,
Oh.
totally unfazed.
That's incredible.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's literal or metaphorical, the story really highlights the
Well,
potential
Yeah.
of yogic practices
Yeah.
to create this level of like inner freedom
Right.
that transcends external circumstances.
So it's about cultivating that that inner space
Yeah.
where even in the midst of chaos we can find that like peace and stability.
Exactly.
And that brings us to Sadhguru's mission to create consecrated spaces.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So this is where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
He's consecrated like numerous spaces around the world, infusing them with a powerful, like energetic vibrancy
Okay.
that supports spiritual growth.
Okay, but how do you consecrate a space?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Is it about like rituals
Yeah.
or objects?
He talks about this yogic process called prana pratishtha,
Okay.
which is essentially like energizing a space
Oh,
or an object
Right.
with a specific intention.
so it's like taking like matter
Yeah.
and transforming it into like a conduit
Yeah.
for higher possibilities.
You got it.
All right.
And a great example is the Dhyanalinga
Okay.
at the Isha Yoga Center in India.
Right.
It's designed to function as like a tool
Okay.
for meditation and transformation.
Huh.
And its potency doesn't rely on like rituals or upkeep, but on the enduring power of like the consecrated energy form itself.
That's incredible.
You mentioned mountains earlier.
Yes.
What's their significance in all this?
Well, I mean, mountains have long been revered in spiritual traditions as sacred spaces,
Right?
and Sadhguru describes them as like points of convergence
Yeah.
between the physical and the mystical.
It's true. He even shares this personal story about having a vision
Okay.
of a specific mountain peak
Mhm.
since childhood.
Wow.
And he later like recognized it as a real place.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And even connected it to the establishment of the Dhyanalinga.
It's like his life's purpose was somehow like woven into the very landscape.
It's a beautiful thought.
It makes you wonder like what hidden forces
Mhm.
might be shaping our own journeys.
Right.
And then there's that incredible story of Sadhguru at Mount Kailash,
Oh, yeah.
where he was like, feeling weak and depleted after weeks of illness.
Hmm.
And he describes like drawing energy from the mountain and
Yeah.
experiencing like almost instantaneous revitalization.
Yeah. And the people around him
Yeah.
even witnessed this like dramatic shift.
That's amazing.
It is a powerful image.
I have to admit, like part of me wants to ask like how much of that was like a placebo effect
Yeah.
or, a subjective experience.
Sure, it's natural to question these kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
But regardless of the explanation,
Right.
the story really speaks to that profound interconnectedness
Yeah.
between our inner and outer landscapes.
Right. It suggests that like places can
Mhm.
hold a certain energy, a certain power
Right.
that can like impact us in profound ways.
I agree.
So after this deep dive into inner engineering,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways?
Well, I think Sadhguru offers us a really powerful framework for like understanding ourselves and the nature of existence.
Yeah.
He emphasizes taking charge of our inner world,
Mm.
cultivating conscious response,
Right.
and recognizing that we have the potential
Yeah.
to access like higher dimensions of experience.
It's about recognizing that true well-being, it isn't found in like external achievements,
Right.
but in the alignment of our body, mind, and energy.
Exactly. He challenges us to move beyond those like limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and embrace like a more expansive and joyful way of being.
So as we wrap up, I'm left with this question that Sadhguru poses in the book.
Hmm.
If you were alone on this planet,
Yeah.
what would true well-being mean to you?
Wow, that's a powerful one.
Yeah, it
It
is.
really invites us to like go beyond societal expectations
Right.
and connect with what truly matters.
At the core of our being.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to reflect on that.
Me too.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into inner engineering.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.